Hey, it's Amy Gastelum here. Thank you so much for listening to Making Contact. If you want to support the show all year long, please consider signing up to make a monthly donation. Just $5 a month will help bring you powerful social justice reporting all year long. Okay, now here's the show.
Making contact.
Making contact. You're listening to Making Contact. I'm Lucy Kang. On last week's episode, we were introduced to the podcast Wading Between Two Titans, which explores the intersection of sea level rise, housing, and racism in Norfolk, Virginia, a city with the fastest rate of sea level rise on the East Coast. On today's show, we're going to stay with the podcast mini-series, which is brought to us by the University of Virginia's Repair Lab and producer Adrian Wood. So, up next, we're going to bring you episode 3 of Wading Between Two Titans, which talks about how urban redevelopment in Norfolk is displacing low-income and Black residents in a case of climate gentrification. I'll let Adrian take it from here.
How old you think I am?
How old do I think you are?
Yeah, tell me.
25.
I wish I
You're
was.
26.
No, ma'am. I'm 78. 78 or 79. One on.
When I met Mr. Vernell, he was wearing a cabbie hat over his curly white hair and a big smile that showed 2 gold teeth.
I'm getting that. Born 1944.
He's had 4 strokes, which makes his speech a little hard to understand sometimes, but his eyes still sparkle. Mr. Vernell lives in the St. Paul's quadrant in downtown Norfolk.
How long have you been living in this neighborhood?
35 years I've been living out here. 35 years.
And when you look around where we're driving through, what has changed since 35 years ago?
Ain't nothing changed but the weather. I've seen so much stuff happen in the park. Yes, man, I've been here a long time.
Public housing communities used to be called parks, so older Norfolk residents like Mr. Vernell often refer to them that way. All 3 of the parks in St. Paul's quadrant look almost exactly the same. Lines of brick apartments that face each other, 2 stories tall, each with matching windows, doors, and AC units. It's a total of upwards of 1,000 units, and it's easy to get lost in the identical row houses for an outsider like me. Vincent Hodges, a social worker and organizer, drove me and Mr. Vernell around all 3 of the public housing parks in the St. Paul's quadrant.
When we roll through here, what do you think, Mr. Vernell? You think that's a good idea to go over there?
To go to all of us, see what's going on. All these parks.
Tidewater Garden, that whole area floods out really bad.
Yes, they do.
St. Paul's is made up of 3 public housing communities: Young's Terrace, Calvert Square, and Tidewater Gardens. About 3 weeks before this recording, Tidewater was demolished.
I can't believe all this gone. I ain't been there for so long. I ain't all these houses gone, man. Tell them now.
Yes, sir. Took them down just like that.
God knows, man.
I know. It's sad, right?
And so that's sad, man.
Tidewater Gardens had been in disrepair for decades as a result of intentional neglect and disinvestment in public housing from local, state, and national levels. It notoriously flooded the worst out of all of the public housing parks in St. Paul's, but flooding is the baseline here.
It's like 2 days after the flooding comes and you can get over to the neighborhoods and say, "You okay? Were you able to get some sandbags up?" Yeah, it might be environmentalism, but it can't rain all the time, and then it's gunshots.
When it comes to safe, healthy, and affordable housing, residents of St. Paul's have more to deal with than just flooding. Environmental hazards are piled on top of a heap of other issues: violence, hunger, and the ever-present chance that their apartments will be destroyed. For Mr. Vernell, it seemed like a shock to see his former home in Tidewater Gardens reduced to just a field, marked with puddles of water from the previous night's rain.
Did you have family in Tidewater? Friends in Tidewater?
Oh, yes, ma'am. I used to live over here.
In our last episode, we introduced Vision 2100, an urban planning document that divvies up Norfolk neighborhoods based on their value as future sites for home work and play, given which parts of the city are projected to be underwater in the next 75 years. On the Vision 2100 map, many formerly redlined neighborhoods, like the St. Paul's Quadrant, are now being identified as ripe for gentrification. Meanwhile, wealthier, whiter areas along the coastline will become uninhabitable due to climate change-fueled sea level rise. Vision 2100 follows a pattern called urban renewal. Urban renewal displaces poor people, usually people of color, through construction projects that aim to increase property values and therefore income taxes for the city. They also clear areas to create space for economic drivers like Starbuckses and art galleries and stadiums that boost appeal on the real estate market. In this episode, we'll hear how current processes of redevelopment in Norfolk echo historic urban renewal projects. Projects rooted in white anxiety about poor Black people. For residents like Mr. Vernell, who was born and raised in Norfolk, these processes are uncomfortably familiar. The St. Paul's redevelopment project will lead to the displacement of Black residents from the city's center to the benefit of real estate investment firms and affluent newcomers to the city. The project embodies public-private partnership in the form of housing choice vouchers. You've probably heard of Section 8, a program that uses government and private investment to help cover the cost of housing. Section 8 vouchers are being offered to the displaced residents of St. Paul's as one tactic within an overall strategy called deconcentrating poverty. Deconcentrating poverty means forced relocation. In the case of St. Paul's, deconcentrating poverty is also tied with government neglect of poor people and the demolition of brick and mortar public housing in favor of private housing that the public partially pays for. Deconcentrating poverty embraces the market and rejects taxpayer-funded units. This is a hot topic of conversation at Norfolk City Council meetings.
Deconcentrate poverty.
Deconcentrate poverty.
Deconcentrating poverty.
If one more person says deconcentrating poverty to me, I'm going to lose it. Deconcentrating poverty, that whole concept is rooted in racism.
Monét Johnson is the lead housing and environmental organizer for New Virginia Majority. During this interview, she had actually lost her voice due to the stress of her work. Monét often works advocating for residents of St. Paul's. As residents of public housing, their landlord is a government agency called the Norfolk Redevelopment and Housing Authority, the NRHA.
With everything that the NRHA does, I think they've sort of become like a one-trick pony in which it's like, just displaced people will figure it out later.
Do you feel like the literal changing landscape of Norfolk with processes like sea level rise contribute to the NRHA working in that way?
No, I think that they've just innately been terrible to Black people, to be honest. I think this is just the newest excuse. And even if we were to talk about deconcentrating poverty, why does it always pick up the Black people and the poor people and move them somewhere else, as opposed to making where they live more desirable?
As an urban renewal project, deconcentrating poverty stretches back generations. In Norfolk, most of these projects have been stewarded by the NRHA. Established in 1940 as a housing authority, the NRHA would become the primary entity responsible for redevelopment and resulting displacement that is now notorious in the city of Norfolk. Let's review the NRHA's track record. 1955.
Our mayor back then was named Fred Duckworth.
You might remember Paul Riddick, who was 2 months from retiring from Norfolk City Council at the time of this recording in September 2022. He was remembering his childhood in the 50s in the Atlantic City neighborhood.
It was a community of working class blacks / poor blacks, working class whites / poor whites.
Atlantic City doesn't exist anymore. Mayor Duckworth used the city's power of eminent domain to seize the entire neighborhood and hand it over to the NRHA to be redeveloped.
But records show that he tore down 3,500 homes and apartments to keep blacks from going to school over there. When Duckworth tore down Atlantic City, we were dispersed. Yeah, 927 West Island Road, that was Atlantic City.
Hello. This is Tidewater Point, and I'm Joel Carlson. A quick look at Norfolk's plans for redevelopment of its
1959. The city of Norfolk was recognized by the U.S. government for their slum clearance projects. Eloquent prayers and speeches inaugurated the NRHA's plan for redevelopment.
This ceremony signalizes the start of that downtown project. I said it represents a kind of a D-Day. Fortunately, however, the attack we're now making is one that cannot be repelled.
An attack that cannot be repelled? What do you think they're attacking? What do they think they're attacking?
This is not a funeral. It is really resurrection. First, I would like to read a
1968. The Scope Arena is built in downtown Norfolk when NRHA Director Larry M. Cox misappropriates funds from the Federal Housing Act, funds that were intended to support construction of affordable housing in the city. Blocks of downtown, where many Black communities were rooted, are razed.
With Mr. Lawrence M. Cox, the Executive Director of the Norfolk Redevelopment and Housing Authority. The slums, as I understand it, are concentrated in the area that is planned for redevelopment in this project. Is that right?
That's correct. No land in this area will go back to residential uses. And this will rid the city of a large segment of blight.
1969. Perhaps the NRHA's most notorious hit, the redevelopment of Ghent.
Before they decided to redevelop Ghent, they sold those homes in Ghent while they had a lifespan of maybe 4 or 5 years to blacks. Well, then they decided, meaning the Redevelopment Housing Authority and the shadow government, they started going in and buying these homes, telling the blacks that they're going to be able to come back. This is Redevelopment Housing Authority. They're going to be able to come back. Well, they could go back, but they weren't told that they're going to need $300,000 or $350,000 to go back.
Black residents who left East Ghent were not able to return to their homes because they couldn't afford the new houses in the area. The housing authority didn't really care where they ended up, and many families were pushed into neighborhoods with a higher concentration of poverty. Mr. Vernell used to live in Ghent with his family.
And you lived with your family?
Oh, yeah, from my mom and dad and my sister and brother. They're tearing it down like they get all these big houses. That's what it did.
Just like their neighbors, Mr. Vernell and his family were told that they would be able to come back to Ghent, but they weren't told that they wouldn't be able to afford the steep prices on the fancy new houses in the redevelopment. Residents of Tidewater Gardens are facing a similar offer from the NRHA, one that eerily echoes what happened to Mr. Vernell and his family decades ago.
Came in here, tore everything down, kicked black folks out.
So then, told us we can move back. Told us we move back. The rent too high. Told us we could come back.
And that's kind of the same thing that they're telling these folks is like, yeah, you have a right to return if you can afford the rent.
Did.
If you can afford the rent.
So couldn't. They know what they were doing.
They knew what they were doing.
I'm just jumping in to remind you that you're listening to Making Contact. If you like today's show and want more information, or if you'd like to leave us a comment, visit us at our new website, focmedia.org. There you can access today's show and all of our prior episodes. And now, back to the show.
Once the neighborhood is torn down, what happens to the people who used to live there? The idea from the housing authority and the city is this. Those people will move into nicer neighborhoods using Section 8 vouchers to cover most of their rent. The goal is to create more mixed-income communities. This is a popular goal among both residents and City Council. Residents of St. Paul's have expressed their desire for mixed-income communities in public hearings. But the strategy of deconcentrating poverty is what hurts.
Their theory is that the issue is not that people have actual systemic roadblocks to where they want to be. It's just that they're around too many like-minded people. And so if we break them up, they'll just magically get into better situations.
Deconcentrating poverty as a strategy doesn't necessarily take into account the kinship networks that support the lives of people living in Young's Terrace, Calvert Square, and formerly Tidewater Gardens. For example, Mr. Vernell has 8 family members who also live in Young's Terrace. That doesn't count the dozens of friends, chosen family, and neighbors who support him and each other in webs of care that are critical to their survival and central to their lives. People who walk him to the door, who give him a ride to the store, check in on him, even come play dominoes with him, bring him food. This kind of network isn't necessarily special, but it is exactly what's being targeted by proponents of deconcentrating poverty. Unconventional family structures that don't fit the male breadwinner nuclear family mold. As we drove out of Young's Terrace, Mr. Vernell asked that we pause and roll down the window so he could say hi to his chosen daughter.
I want to holler at my daughter. Yeah. Hey, darling. Hey, darling. I love you, daughter.
Just one of many folks Mr. Vernell waved to or said hi to as we drove through the neighborhoods. But this time, in the same breath, in the same minute, Mr. Vernell pointed out a memorial that his daughter was standing next to.
Somebody got killed right there on the thing on the fence.
That's where the 5 women were murdered last year?
Yeah, they murdered the 5 women.
Or it was 3 women that died.
Yeah,
but 5 women were shot.
Yeah, right there.
Yep. 2 of
Yeah.
them were part of the LGBT.
Want to take the picture with your camera?
You can hear it in his voice.
Take a picture of it?
This is important. He wants to make sure that we see it, acknowledge what the memorial means, and remember it. Kinship networks like Mr. Vernell's exist alongside both extreme and mundane tragedies that punctuate the daily lives of residents. There's gun violence that has gotten worse since the beginning of the redevelopment project. It's also challenging for residents to access fresh and healthy food at prices they can afford. Residents who still live in Young's Terrace and Calvert Square don't receive adequate attention for maintenance requests. And some of the maintenance issues are severe.
So this is not even like maintenance, like, oh, my screen door is broken. Like, these are serious issues that people don't care about. People's bathrooms, they're all upstairs, so people's toilets are leaking onto the dishes. Downstairs on their dish racks, people don't care about that. It's a lot of pretty egregious stuff.
The demands residents and advocates are making are pretty reasonable.
Safe, healthy, and dignified housing. I wish they would have started building. I think if I can change one thing, it was you should have started building something. Move people one time.
It's not even don't move us, we're not going. It's just give us somewhere to go that's worth going to. Residents of the St. Paul's Quadrant cannot stay there the way that it is. That much is clear. But the mode of redevelopment isn't just about deconcentrating poverty. It also reinforces persistent patterns of segregation and environmental racism across the city, pushing Black people out of the places that are slated to receive the most protection from sea level rise. Tidewater Gardens flooded the worst out of all of the public housing communities because it was built over top of a filled-in riverbed.
I think Tidewater Park flooded the worst out of the 3.
Oh, yes, it do. Yeah, this park, the worst. This park here worse than any of Cause on the sea level, this park here, this was right close to the river. That's why they get flooded more.
With the redevelopment, 44 acres of what was formerly Tidewater Gardens will receive a new stormwater system and a blueway that restores that river that was originally filled in. The blueway is a flooding protection that aligns with and emerges partially from the Vision 2100. St. Paul's is in the red zone on Vision 2100's map, which means that it's slated to receive some of the most intensive protections the city offers through their infrastructure projects. Before the St. Paul's redevelopment, the red zone on the Vision 2100 map was demographically proportionate in terms of race to the city of Norfolk as a whole, which means about 60% white, 40% black. After the redevelopment, accounting for the assumed removal of the black population of St. Paul's, the red zone becomes grossly disproportionately white. The imaginary crowds who will flock to the market rate apartments at the new St. Paul's will receive the best of Norfolk's infrastructure protection from sea level rise. Not the families who suffered through the worst of the flooding, the demolition, or the multiple forced moves from unit to unit. Because deconcentrating poverty disregards those families' experiences. In 2020, the plan for St. Paul's was to demolish all 3 public housing communities, upwards of 1,000 units. But that plan changed after January 2021, when Monét Johnson was a plaintiff with a New Virginia majority in a lawsuit against the NRHA, advocating for St. Paul's residents who were being displaced by the redevelopment.
Yeah, so that was us. That was our community group. And I think it's considered like the largest discrimination lawsuit that the city of Norfolk has faced. All of the residents of St. Paul's are Black people. It's like upwards of 95% African American over there. The lawsuit was about like the right to return, the right to stay in Norfolk as a Black resident and not be threatened because the land you're on is now considered valuable.
This lawsuit, filed and decided in 2021, alleged that the NRHA was perpetuating segregation through their historic urban renewal rearrangements of Norfolk. The city, through the NRHA, was forced to pay the residents of St. Paul's a cumulative total of $200,000 and set aside an additional 41 units at the market rate apartment complex across the street from St. Paul's. It's called Market Heights.
Do you remember a time when it flooded really bad?
Oh, yes, ma'am.
When was the last time that happened?
3 months ago, real bad. Yeah, the money gonna get out.
How long could you not get out of the house?
A day and a half. Had to wait till the water go down.
Water makes existing problems worse. The city announced to residents that the demolition of Tidewater Gardens had released loose asbestos. Residents who were still living in Tidewater units at the time of the demolition were exposed to it before they got moved out. This is Vincent Hodges.
Adrian, like they're doing construction across the street from one of my tenants, like right there. I mean, construction right there, open asbestos right there. My dad died of mesothelioma due to dealing with asbestos on naval ships. We know it's harmful at minimum, and we know we're moving it at minimum. It's exacerbated when rains come. We had a series of rains a couple of weeks ago. You could drive into Tidewater Gardens and the air smelled different. I mean, noticeably different. Chemicals, something. Water is taken care of there at the rate of convenient displacement. Water's taken care of at the speed of redevelopment.
The speed of redevelopment is negotiated by the powers that plan it, the City Council and the NRHA. Their relationship allows both to avoid accountability.
It's like the meme of the 2 Spider-Men pointing at each other. That's my job. I go to the city, I'm like, can you help these people? They're like, ask the NRHA. I go to the NRHA, I'm like, hey, can you help these people? They're like, ask the city.
As of fall 2022, 618 low-income units in chronically flooding Tidewater Gardens have been demolished, to be replaced with a total of 714 brand new units on site. For the families that Monét is trying to help, the ones that are being moved out due to the redevelopment, choices are limited. About half signed up to return to the small percentage of new units that are set aside for former residents. The idea is that they'll live somewhere else until the new units are built, then come back. The NRHA offers housing choice vouchers to facilitate this process. They're also known as Section 8 vouchers. Section 8 is the main tactic within the strategy of deconcentrating poverty. The vouchers are intended to supplement rent payments for low-income families. About a third of the new units are voucher eligible.
The last time I checked, the waiting list to get a voucher, not even the waiting list of people with a voucher at apartment complexes, is about 7,800 people. It was closed for a while, up until at least March, April-ish, if I'm not mistaken. They opened it for 3 days, and 4,000 new families were on the list. It's closed again, so we're at like a 7,800-ish number.
Most families tried to apply for the vouchers, but only a few were able to get them. Vincent Hodges has seen the Section 8 system from the inside alongside some of the residents that he assists.
The voucher system is just so insultingly insufficient. And then the injustices that tenants are facing for it because they're not being considered for housing. They're showing up with, Section 8 tattooed all over their application. People are having to apply with other names, anglicized names to try to get approval. It's crazy.
This kind of thing happens all the time. If a landlord wants to reject an applicant because they have Section 8 support, they'll find a way to. Whether it's just making it a hassle for them to get to the rental office, or adding extra paperwork, or finding something in their record to justify the rejection. If it's so hard to get a voucher, where then do displaced families go?
Oh man, so it depends on the family. More likely than not Norfolk. Other families have gone to other NRHA neighborhoods with their vouchers where they're not subjected to necessarily the impending demolition, but the same poor housing conditions, mold, all of that good stuff. There are people who have moved as far as Oklahoma. And then there are people who just were scared by the continuous notices from the city and were like, I got to get out of here. From before the first building was torn down or vacated, they were informed by us, by residents, by others, that there's not going to be a place to go with these vouchers. They ignored that. When they started tearing things down, they ignored it. When they started moving people from one part of a neighborhood to another part, because they couldn't find places to go, they ignored it. And now that half the community is gone and there's only a few families who are subjected to some really, really horrible conditions and are still saying, I don't necessarily have anywhere to go, it's still being ignored.
Deconcentrating poverty doesn't resolve poverty. It just disperses people and makes them less noticeable. Networks of kinship that had offered some kinds of regulation and stability to people get unraveled through processes like these. And the cycle continues because the system continues, unless we choose a path that aims to create conditions in which poverty can be healed from, rather than rendering the poor invisible and isolated.
That's the voice of producer Adrian Wood from episode 3 of the podcast Waiting Between Two Titans from the University of Virginia's Repair Lab. It first aired in 2022. Since then, it's been reported that the Norfolk Redevelopment and Housing Authority is continuing with plans to tear down Calvert Square and Young Terrace, the two other public housing parks mentioned in the show. And that does it for today. For now, I'm Lucy Kang. Thanks for listening to Making Contact.